All right, everybody. Good evening. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
There we go. Okay, very, very good. Glad to have everyone here tonight. Thank you so much, Rama
Hey,
Raghava, for the
Krishna.
wonderful introduction, and we appreciate that very, very much. For those of you who have not been on or may see this at a later date on our YouTube channel, we are studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the cream or the essence of all the Vedic literatures. When Sri Vyasadeva compiled the Vedic literature over 5,000 years ago, he still felt unsatisfied. So, as a result of that dissatisfaction, immediately an incarnation of God appeared before him, Sri Narada Muni. And so Narada Muni explained to him that he had not described the beautiful pastimes of the personality of Godhead in his multifarious incarnations. And those incarnations are in all species. Of course, God is everything that we see, so he can manifest in any species he desires. So in this study, we're studying those avatars, or those manifestations, incarnations in this world of God in these various incarnations for the benefit of the world. So these are ancient studies, ancient stories, personalities, great kings who lived in ancient time and different millennium, and their stories have been recorded throughout time immemorial for the benefit of all of us. So please join us as we read tonight, and I'll start, if you don't mind, with pranams. Chant with me if you know them. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devim Gaudavani Pricharane Nirvishesha Shunyvari Pastyachare Shtane Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Advaita Giridhara Shivasri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai, the beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam. We're reading from Canto 8, Chapter 17. The Lord agrees to become Aditi's son. And I'll begin. We're reading 3 chapters tonight, so we're going to be a little aggressive. We still, even after these 3 chapters, we have 4 more to go in the story of Bali. So please join in. Anyone who wants to read with us, please join in, and you can read from the screen as our dear Rama Raghava Prabhuji scrolls through them. So give me text 1, and we'll get started. Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, after Aditi was advised by her husband Kashyapa Muni, she strictly followed his instructions without laziness. In this way, performed the Payovrata ritualistic ceremony. With full undiverted attention, Aditi thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in this way she brought under full control her mind and senses, which resembled forceful horses. She concentrated her mind upon the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. Thus she performed the ritualistic ceremony known as Payovrata. My dear king, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, dressed in yellow garments and bearing a conch shell disc club and lotus in his forehands, then appeared before Aditi. When the Supreme Lord, the Personality of Godhead, became visible to Aditi's eyes, Aditi was so overwhelmed by the transcendental bliss that she at once stood up and then fell to the ground like a rod to offer the Lord her respectful obeisances. Aditi stood silently with folded hands, unable to offer prayers to the Lord because of transcendental bliss. Tears filled her eyes, and her hairs on her body stood on end. Because she could see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, she felt ecstasy, and her body trembled. O Maharaj Pariksit, the demigoddess Aditi then began offering her prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in a faltering voice and with great love. She appeared as though drinking through her eyes the Supreme Lord, who is the husband of the goddess of fortune, the enjoyer of all sacrificial ceremonies, and the master and lord of the entire universe. The goddess Aditi said, O master and enjoyer of all sacrificial ceremonies, O infallible and most famous person, whose name, when chanted, spreads all good fortune, O original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supreme Controller, shelter of all holy places, you are the shelter of all poor, suffering living entities, and you have appeared to diminish their suffering. Please be kind to us and spread our good fortune. My Lord, you are the all-pervading universal form, the fully independent creator, maintainer, and destroyer of this universe. Although you engage your energy in matter, you are always situated in your original form and never fall from that position. For your knowledge is infallible and always suitable to any situation. You are never bewildered by illusion. Oh, my Lord, let me offer my respectful obeisance unto you. O unlimited one, if your lordship is satisfied, one can very easily obtain a lifetime as long as that of Lord Brahma, a body either in the upper, lower, or middle planetary systems, unlimited material opulence, religion, economic development, and satisfaction of the senses, full transcendental knowledge, and the 8 yogic perfections. What to speak of such petty achievements as conquering one's rivals? Sukadeva Goswami said, O King Pariksit, best of the Bharata dynasty, when the lotus-eyed Lord, the supersoul of all living entities, has thus worshipped by a deity, he replied as follows. Who would like to pick up there?
I'll jump in while people are thinking about it then. Just to be quick.
Go for it.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Mother of the demigods, I have already understood your long-cherished desires for the welfare of your sons, who have been deprived of all opulence and driven from their residence by their enemies. O Devi, O Goddess, I can understand that you want to regain your sons and be together with them, to worship me after defeating the enemies in battle and retrieving your abode and opulences. You want to see the wives of the demons lamenting for the death of their husbands when those demons, the enemies of your sons, are killed in battle by the demigods, of whom Indra is the chief. You want your sons to regain their lost reputation and opulence and live again on their heavenly planet as usual. O Mother of the demigods, in my opinion, almost all the chiefs of the other demons are now unconquerable, for they are being protected by Brahmanas, whom the Supreme Lord always favors. Thus, the use of power against them now will not at all be a source of happiness. Yet, because I've been satisfied by the activities of your vow, O Goddess Aditi, I must find some means to favor you, for worship of me never goes in vain, but certainly gives the desired result according to what one deserves. You have prayed to me and properly worshipped me by performing the great Payavrata ceremony for the sake of protecting your sons. Because of Kashyapa Muni's austerities, I shall agree to become your son and thus protect your other sons. Always thinking of me as being situated within the body of your husband, Kashyapa, go worship your husband, who has been purified by his austerities. O lady, even if someone inquires, you should not disclose this fact to anyone. That which is very confidential is successful if kept secret. Sukadeva Goswami said, after speaking in this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead disappeared from that very spot. Aditi, having received the extremely valuable benediction that the Lord would appear as her son, considers herself very successful, and with great devotion she approached her husband. Being situated in a meditational trance, Kashyapa Muni, whose vision is never mistaken, could see that a plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead had entered within him. O king, as the wind promotes friction between two pieces of wood and thus gives rise to fire, Kashyapa Muni, whose transcendental position was fully absorbed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transferred his potency into the womb of Aditi. When Lord Brahma understood that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was now within the womb of Aditi, he began to offer prayers to the Lord by reciting transcendental names. Lord Brahma said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, all glories unto you, who are glorified by all and whose activities are all uncommon. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, O Lord of the Transcendentalist, controller of the three modes of nature. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you again and again. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the all-pervading Lord Vishnu, who have entered the core of the hearts of all living entities. All the three worlds reside within your navel, yet you are above the three worlds. Formerly, you appeared as the son of Pushni. To you, the Supreme Creator, who are understood only through Vedic knowledge, I offer my respectful obeisances. O my Lord, you are the beginning, the manifestation, and the ultimate dissolution of the three worlds, and you are celebrated in the Vedas as the reservoir of unlimited potencies, the Supreme Person. O my Lord, as waves attract branches and leaves that have fallen into deep water, you, the Supreme Eternal Time Factor, attract everything in this universe. My Lord, you are the original generator of all living entities, stationary or moving, and you are also the generator of the Prajapatis. O my Lord, as a boat is the only hope for a person drowning in the water, you are the only shelter for the demigods, who are now bereft of their heavenly position. Okay.
Okay. Next chapter. Thank you, Rangavati Prabhuji. Who would like to read next?
I can read.
Okay, please.
Sukadeva Goswami said, after Lord Brahma had thus spoken, glorifying the Supreme Lord's activities and prowess, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is never subject to death like an ordinary living being, appeared from the womb of Aditi. His 4 hands were decorated with a conch shell, club, lotus, and disc. He was dressed in yellow garments, and his eyes appeared like the petals of a blooming lotus. The body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, blackish in complexion, was free from all inebrities. His lotus face, decorated with earrings resembling sharks, appeared very beautiful, and on his bosom was the mark of Srivatsa. He wore bangles on his wrist, armlets on his arms, a helmet on his head, a belt on his waist, a sacred thread across his chest, and ankle bells decorating his lotus feet. An uncommonly beautiful garland of flowers decorated his bosom, and because the flowers were extremely fragrant, a large group of bees, making their natural humming sounds, invaded them for honey. When the Lord appeared wearing the Kaustubha gem on his neck, his effulgence vanquished the darkness in the home of Prajapati Kashyapa. At that time, there was happiness in all directions, in the reservoirs of water like the rivers and the oceans, and in the core of everyone's heart. The various seasons displayed their respective qualities, and all living entities in the upper planetary system, in the outer space, and on the surface of the earth were jubilant. The demigods, the cows, and the brahmanas, and the hills and mountains were all filled with joy. On the day of Shravana Dwadashi, the 12th day of the bright fortnight in the month of Bhadra, when the moon came in the lunar mansion Shravana, at the auspicious moment of Abhijit, the Lord appeared in this universe. Considering the Lord's appearance very auspicious, all the stars and planets from the sun to Saturn were munificently charitable. O King, when the Lord appeared on Dwadashi, the 12th day of the moon, the sun was at the meridian, as every learned scholar knows. This Dwadashi is called Vijaya. Conch shells, kettle drums, panavas, and anakas vibrated in concert. The sound of these and various other instruments were tumultuous. Being very pleased, the celestial dancing girls, Apsaras, danced in jubilation. The best of Gandharvas sang songs, and the great sages, demigods, Manus, Pitas, and fire gods offered prayers to satisfy the Lord. The Siddhas, Vidyadharas, Kimpurushas, Kinnaras, Charanas, Yakshas, Rakshasas, Suparnas, the best of serpents, and the followers of the demigods all showered flowers on Aditi's residence, covering the entire house while glorifying and praising the Lord and dancing. When Aditi saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had appeared from her own womb, having accepted a transcendental body by his own spiritual potency, she was struck with wonder and was very happy. Upon seeing the child, Prajapati Kashyapa exclaimed, Jaya Jaya, in great happiness and wonder. The Lord appeared in his original form with ornaments and weapons in his hands. Although this ever-existing form is not visible in the material world, he nonetheless appeared in this form. Then, in the presence of his father and mother, he assumed the form of Vamana, a Brahmana dwarf, a brahmachari, just like a theatrical actor. When the great sages saw the Lord as a brahmachari, dwarf Vamana, they were certainly very pleased. Thus they placed before them Kashyapa Muni, the Prajapati, and performed all the ritualistic ceremonies, such as the birthday ceremony. At the sacred thread ceremony of Vamanadeva, the sun god personally uttered the Gayatri mantra, Brihaspati offered the sacred thread, and Kashyapa Muni offered a straw belt. Mother Earth gave him a deerskin, and the demigod of the moon, who is the king of the forest, gave him a Brahmadanda, the rod of a brahmachari. His mother Aditi gave him cloth for underwear, and the deity presiding over the heavenly kingdom offered him an umbrella. O king, Lord Brahmana offered a water pot to the inexhaustible Supreme Personality of Godhead. The 7 sages offered him kusha grass, and Mother Saraswati gave him a string of Rudraksha beads. When Vamadeva had thus been given the sacred thread, Kuvera, king of Yakshas, gave him a pot for begging alms, and Mother Bhagavati, the wife of Lord Shiva and the most chaste mother of the entire universe, gave him his first alms. Having thus been welcomed by everyone, Lord Vamana, the best of the brahmacharis, exhibited his Brahman effulgence. Thus he surpassed in beauty that entire assembly, which was filled with great saintly brahmanas. After Lord Sri Vamadeva set a sacrificial fire, he offered worship and performed a fire sacrifice on the sacrificial field. When the Lord heard that Bali Maharaja was performing Ashwamedha sacrifices under the patronage of the Brahmanas belonging to the Bhrigu dynasty, The Supreme Lord, who is full in every respect, proceeded there to show his mercy to Bali Maharaja. By his weight, he pushed down the earth with every step. While engaged in performing the sacrifice in the field known as Brigu Kacha on the northern bank of Narmada River, the Brahminical priest, the descendants of Brigu, saw Vamanadeva to be like the sun rising nearby. O king, because of Vamadeva's bright effulgence, the priest, along with Bali Maharaja and all the members of the assembly, were robbed of their splendor. Thus they began to ask one another whether the sun god himself, Sanat Kumara, or the fire god had personally come to see the sacrificial ceremony. While the priests of the Brigu dynasty and their disciples talked and argued in various ways, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vamadeva, holding in his hands the rod, the umbrella, and a water pot full of water, entered the arena of Ashwamedha sacrifice. Appearing as a Brahmana boy, wearing a belt of straw, a sacred thread, an upper garment of deerskin, and matted locks of hair, Lord Vamanadeva entered the arena of sacrifice. His brilliant effulgence diminished the brilliance of all the priests and their disciples, who thus stood from their seats and welcomed the Lord properly by offering obeisances. Bali Maharaja, jubilant at seeing Lord Vamanadeva, whose beautiful limbs contributed equally to the beauty of his entire body, offered him a seat with great satisfaction. Thus offering a proper reception to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always beautiful to the liberated souls, Bali Maharaja worshipped him by washing his lotus feet. Lord Shiva, the best of demigods, who carries on his forehead the emblem of the moon, receives on his head with great devotion of the Ganges, water emanating from the toe of Vishnu. Being aware of religious principles, Bali Maharaja knew this. Consequently, following in the footsteps of Lord Shiva, he also placed on his head the water that had washed the Lord's lotus feet. Bali Maharaja then said to Lord Vamanadeva, O Brahmana, I offer you my hearty welcome and my respectful obeisances. Please let us know what we may do for you. We think of you as the personified austerity of the great Brahmana sages. O my Lord, because you have kindly arrived at our home, all my forefathers are satisfied. Our family and entire dynasty has been sanctified, and the sacrifice we are performing is now complete because of your presence. Does somebody want to take it?
Who's next? Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Someone want to step up?
We have some new people who've joined us this tonight. We have Prashant from Huntsville and also Nitai Leela from Alachua.
Haribol. Very nice to have you.
Thank you.
Okay, and you guys are welcome to read as well. Anybody who wants to pick up here?
I can read if nobody else wants.
That's fine.
O son of a Brahmana, today the fire of sacrifice is ablaze according to the injunction of the Shastra, and I have been freed from all the sinful reactions of my life by the water that has washed your lotus feet. O my Lord, by the touch of your small lotus feet, the entire surface of the world has been sanctified. O son of a Brahmana, it appears that you have come here to ask me for something. Therefore, whatever you want, you may take from me. O best of those who are worshipable, you may take from me a cow, gold, a furnished house, palatable food and drink, the daughter of a Brahmana for your wife, prosperous villages, horses, elephants, chariots, or whatever you desire. 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 。 . 。 。 . 。 。 . . 。 . 。 . .
。 .
Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purpose of the 8th canto, 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Lord Vamanadeva, the Dwarf Incarnation.
And we're going to read 19 as well. So you might want to continue for a few more.
Sure. Shukadev Goswami continued, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vamanadeva, heard Bali Maharaj speaking in this pleasing way, he was very satisfied. For Bali Maharaj had spoken in terms of religious principles. Thus the Lord began to praise him. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O King, you are indeed exalted because your present advisors are the Brahmanas who are descendants of Brigu, and because your instructor for your future life is your grandfather, the peaceful and venerable Prahlad Maharaj. Your statements are very true, and they completely agree with religious etiquette. They are in keeping with the behavior of your family, and they enhance your reputation. I know that even until now, no one taking birth in your family has been poor-minded or miserly. No one has refused to give charity to Brahmanas, nor after promising to give charity has anyone failed to fulfill his promise. O King Bali, never in your dynasty has the low-minded king been born, who upon being requested has refused charity to Brahmanas in holy places, or a fight to Kshatriyas on a battlefield. And your dynasty is even more glorious due to the presence of Prahlad Maharaj, who is like the beautiful moon in the sky. It was in your dynasty that Hiranyaksha was born. Carrying only his own club, he wandered the globe alone, without assistance, to conquer all directions, and no hero he met could rival him. When delivering the earth from the Garbhodaka sea, Lord Vishnu, in his incarnation as a boar, killed Hiranyaksha, who had appeared before him. The fight was severe, and the Lord killed Hiranyaksha with great difficulty. Later, as the Lord thought about the uncommon prowess of Hiranyaksha, he felt himself victorious indeed. When Hiranyakashipu heard the news of his brothers being killed, with great anger, he went to the residence of Vishnu, the killer of his brother, wanting to kill Lord Vishnu. Seeing Hiranyakashipu coming forward, bearing a trident in his hand like personified death, Lord Vishnu, the best of all mystics and the knower of the progress of time, thought as follows. Wheresoever I go, Hiranyakashipu will follow me, as death follows all living entities. Therefore, it is better for me to enter the core of his heart, for then, because of his power to see only externally, he will not see me. Lord Vamanadeva continued, O king of the demons, after Lord Vishnu made this decision, he entered the body of his enemy Hiranyakashipu, who was running after him with great force. In a subtle body inconceivable to Hiranyakashipu, Lord Vishnu, who was in great anxiety, entered Hiranyakashipu's nostril along with his breath. Nimai, can you please stop? Upon seeing that the residence of Lord Vishnu was vacant, Hiranyakashipu began searching for Lord Vishnu everywhere. Angry at not seeing him, Hiranyakashipu screamed loudly and searched the entire universe, including the surface of the earth, the higher planetary systems, all directions, and all the caves and oceans. But Hiranyakashipu, the greatest hero, did not see Vishnu anywhere. Unable to see him, Hiranyakashipu said, I have searched the entire universe, but I could not find Vishnu, who has killed my brother. Therefore, he must certainly have gone to that place from which no one returns. In other words, he must now be dead. Hiranyakashipu's anger against Lord Vishnu persisted until his death. Other people in the bodily concept of life maintain anger only because of false ego and the great influence of ignorance. Your father Virochana, the son of Maharaj Prahlad, was very affectionate toward Brahmanas, although he knew very well that it was the demigods who had come to him in the dress of Brahmanas. At their request, he delivered to them the duration by your forefathers and by great heroes who are extremely famous for their exalted activities. O King of the Daityas, from your majesty who come from such a noble family and who are able to give charity munificently, I ask only 3 paces of land to the measurement of my steps. O King, controller of the entire universe, although you are very munificent and are able to give me as much land as I want, I do not want anything from you that is unnecessary. If a learned Brahmana takes charity from others only according to his needs, he does not become entangled in sinful activities. Bali Maharaj said, O son of a Brahmana, your instructions are as good as those of learned and elderly persons. Nonetheless, you are a boy and your intelligence is insufficient. Thus, you're not very prudent in regard to your self-interest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to give you an entire island because I'm the proprietor of the 3 divisions of the universe. You have come to take something from me and have pleased me by your sweet words, but you're asking only 3 paces of land. Therefore, you're not very intelligent. O small boy, one who approaches me to beg something should not have to ask anything more anywhere. Therefore, if you wish, you may ask for me as much land as will suffice to maintain you according to your needs. The personality of God had said, O my dear king, even the entirety of whatever there may be within the 3 worlds to satisfy one's senses cannot satisfy a person whose senses are uncontrolled. If I were not satisfied with 3 paces of land, then surely I would not be satisfied even with possessing one of the 7 islands consisting of 9 varshas. Even if I possessed one island, I would hope to get others. We have heard that although powerful kings like Maharaj Prithu and Maharaj Gaya achieved proprietorship over the 7 dvipas, they could not achieve satisfaction or find the end of their ambitions. One should be satisfied with whatever he achieves by his previous destiny, for discontent can never bring happiness. A person who is not self-controlled will not be happy, even with possessing the 3 worlds. Does anyone else?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Nityalita. Thank you so much. That was very, very nice. Anybody else would like to read? That's great. Who else we have?
Dandavad Pranam.
Please.
25. Material existence causes discontent in regard to fulfilling one's lust, desires, and achieving more and more money. This is the cause for the continuation of material life, which is full of repeated birth and death. But one who is satisfied by that which is obtained by destiny is fit for liberation from this material existence. A Brahmana who is satisfied with whatever is providentially obtained is increasingly enlightened with spiritual power, but the spiritual potency of a dissatisfied Brahmana decreases as fire diminishes in potency when water is sprinkled upon it. Therefore, O king, from you, the best of those who give charity, I ask only 3 paces of land. By such a gift, I shall be very pleased. For the way of happiness is to be fully satisfied to receive that which is absolutely needed. Sukadeva Goswami continued, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead had thus spoken to Bali Maharaj, Bali smiled and told him, all right, take whatever you like. To confirm his promise to give Vamanadeva the desired land, he then took up his water pot. Understanding Lord Vishnu's purpose, Sukracharya, the best of the learned, immediately spoke as follows to his disciple, who was about to offer everything to Lord Vamanadeva. Sukracharya said, O son of Virojana, this brahmachari is the form of a dwarf, is directly the imperishable Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. Accepting Kashyapa Muni as his father and Aditi as his mother, he has now appeared in order to fulfill the interests of the demigods. You do not know what a dangerous position you have accepted by promising to give him land. I do not think that this promise is good for you. It will bring great harm to the demons. This person falsely appearing as a brahmachari is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, who has come in the form to take away all your land, wealth, beauty, power, fame, and education. After taking everything from you, he will deliver it to Indra, your enemy. You have promised to give him 3 steps of land in charity, but when you give it, he will occupy the 3 worlds. You are a rascal. You do not know what a great mistake you have made. After giving everything to Lord Vishnu, you will have no means of livelihood. How then shall you live? Vamanadeva will first occupy the 3 worlds with 1 step. Then he will take his second step and occupy everything in outer space. And then he will extend his universal body to occupy everything. Where will you offer him the 3rd step? You will certainly be unable to fulfill your promise. And I think that because of this inability, your eternal residence will be in hell. Learned scholars do not praise that charity which endangers one's own livelihood. Charity, sacrifice, austerity, and fruitive activities are possible for one who is competent to earn his livelihood properly. They are not possible for one who cannot maintain himself. Therefore, one who is in full knowledge should divide his accumulated wealth in 5 parts: for religion, for reputation, for opulence, for sense gratification, and for maintenance of his family members. Such a person is happy in this world and in the next. One might argue that since you have already promised, how can you refuse? O best of the demons, just take from me the evidence of the Bhavracha Shruti, which says that a promise is truthful preceded by the word Om and untruthful if not. The Vedas enjoin that the factual results of the tree of the body is the good fruits and flowers derived from it. But if the body tree does not exist, there is no possibility of factual fruits and flowers. Even if the body is based on untruth, there cannot be factual fruits and flowers without the help of the bodily tree. When a tree is uprooted, it immediately falls down and begins to dry up. Similarly, if one doesn't take care of the body, which is supposed to be untruth, in other words, if the untruth is uprooted, the body undoubtedly becomes dry. The utterance of the word Om signifies separation from one's monetary assets. In other words, by uttering this word, one becomes free from attachment to money because his money is taken away from him. To be without money is not very satisfactory, for in that position one cannot fulfill one's desires. In other words, by using the word Om, one becomes poverty-stricken, especially when one gives charity to a poor man or beggar. One remains unfulfilled in self-realization and in sense gratification. Therefore, the safe course is to say no. Although it is a falsehood, it projects one completely. It draws the compassion of others towards oneself, and it gives one full facility to collect money from others for oneself. Nonetheless, if one always pleads that he has nothing, he is condemned, for he is a dead body while living, or while still breathing, he should be killed. in flattering a woman to bring her under control, in joking, in a marriage ceremony, in earning one's livelihood when one's life is in danger, in protecting cows and Brahminical culture, or in protecting a person from an enemy's hand, falsity is never condemned. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 8th canto, 19th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Vamanadeva begs charity from Bali Maharaj.
Jai. Haribol. Very nice. That's 3 chapters we read tonight, Vamsi. Good to see you tonight. How are you?
Hare Krishna.
Haribol. So yes, we've got some new folks and some excellent readers. Nitalila Dasi, thank you so much for that wonderful reading tonight. That was very beautiful. Everybody is doing a nice job here on this program. And now we have Ram Raghava as our technical director. And as you can see, he's added a little bit to the front program, and we're very, very pleased with that. So let me ask, these 3 chapters have a lot of information in them. Who would like to elucidate us a little bit about what they heard in these chapters, or maybe you have any questions, or maybe you have some comments or something you would like to bring forward with the devotees? Would you please go ahead and do that at this time? Anybody have any comments, any questions? We're going to recap this chapter. Go ahead.
Well, Krishna always, he never does anything sort of like simple. He always creates a whole scenario, a whole play. Like he can do anything at any time. And for some reason, in this situation, he decided to appear as a dwarf, which is quite interesting why he decided a dwarf instead of maybe a nice, handsome young Brahmana or something. He was a dwarf. And so that's interesting anyway, that he decided in this instance to be a dwarf.
Well, I think he knew he could take advantage. I think he knew he could take advantage of Bali as being that dwarf Brahmana and asking for 3 steps from a dwarf. I mean, by the measurement of his own steps, it's insignificant. So he knew he could cheat. He could cheat him. What does anybody else think about that? Any other point about that? Yeah, he had everything he needed to perform this particular pastime. Just like we see the Lord previously in the previous chapters appeared as a tortoise. So that was everything he needed to lift this mountain so that they could use it to churn the milk ocean. Or the Lord appeared as Nrsingadev, half man, half lion, and performed that pastime in a doorway at twilight, in a lap killed by nails, every way perfect. So these stories of the avatars of the Lord are the most amazing. And the Lord comes as Vedavyasa and writes all this down for you. And he actually comes as Narada Muni to create catalytic environments amongst the demigods. Sometimes he's creating war with the demigods, and sometimes he's creating peace, but he's always creating a catalytic situation, just like the time he came, I think, to Chitraketu, and he said, "Why are you lamenting for the dead son?" And so he raised the son from the dead, and then the son immediately described the situation. Which parent are you? I mean, I've had millions and trillions of parents. So they began to realize that their love and their affection and their attachment to this small child was unwarranted, and therefore they became self-reliant. So in every case, the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes in exactly the form that's perfect. He's the monarch in all species. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that. And one thing that sticks out in my mind in this chapter 2 is if we see that these great prayers of Aditi, as she's performing this, by the way, they just did the Payovrata sacrifice where she went 12 days. In 12 days, she was able to bring God directly before her in 12 days. And what was it who brought the Lord before him? Who was it? Can anybody remind me that he only had to meditate for a short period of time? That was Narada, wasn't it? Where Narada went off into the wilderness after his mother was bit by the snake bird, etc., or the snake, and then went off into the wilderness and did his meditation, and the Lord came before him. So actually, the Lord is purchased. I've read that the Lord is purchased by the sincere tears of the devotee, right? So we see in different millennium, it may be different types of sacrifice, maybe different offerings, different austerities. But in 9:14 in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Satatam kirtayanto mam, yatantascha dridabrata, mamanyastascha mam bhaktya, nitya yukta pasate, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination and bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with love. So we see that the Lord is conquered by love. That person who is unconquerable is conquered by the love, sincere love, and devotion of the devotee. In every case, that is how the Lord is brought into submission, literally, and becomes the servant of the devotee and is the protector of the devotee. Just like we read that when anyone who lays down their weapons before Ramchandra, he is vowing to protect them. Now he's obligated to protect them. And we know that the Lord's favorite pastime is to do things for his servants, for his devotees. So it's a very, very wonderful situation that we have here. And we watch these demigods and their prayers, the prayers of Aditi, the prayers of Brahma. And we hear all these wonderful prayers, Prahlad Maharaj, and we can learn so much in these prayers because they're giving us the right mood, the right understanding. Actually, we should learn these prayers so that at the time of death we can recite the prayers before the Lord, just like the great prayers of Bhishma when he asked the Lord, when he was on the bed of arrows, to come before him. And he fixed his gaze on the Lord, and he left his body in that situation, state of ecstasy. So in this way, we're also going to see how Bali Maharaj is delivered in just a minute. But there's a lot in this chapter. It's 748. So does anybody else have anything to add? If you don't, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and kind of just recap some high points that I grabbed out of these 3 chapters and just stop me, chime in, interject, whatever you want, because this is a discussion. But there were some very, very wonderful points that I don't want us to walk away without remembering these particular points. Has anybody got anything else they want to add to the conversation that we're just talking about? Go ahead.
One point is Vamanadeva, the Supreme Lord, when he comes as a beggar, he's the best beggar ever. He is flattering Bali Maharaj and saying, acting as if he doesn't want much, and also talking about even Hiranyakashipu in a very favorable way, and how great he was. And then he talks about his father Virochan, who's also very charitable. So he's implying that your descendants were very charitable, so you have to be charitable too and give me what I want. So I think it's a lesson to be learned how to ask for donations.
Use that in book distribution. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
He said that he was in a noble family and no one in his family had ever broken their promise in the history of the dynasty. So he said, certainly you're not going to break it now. So he really had him over the barrel, didn't he? The Lord knows how to do that.
I wanted to add something too.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I'd like to share a wonderful prayer. And there's a set of prayers called the Dashavatar Stotram, which many devotees know. It's by a great devotee named Jayadeva Goswami, who lived in the 12th century, about 100 or so years before the appearance of Lord Chaitanya. And he comprised 10 verses glorifying the 10 prominent incarnations of Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu. And one of those prayers is to Lord Vamanadeva, and it's very beautiful. Of course, some people may be able to recite it better in a more poetic tone. Jayadeva Goswami was a great poet also, and he's famous for the Dashavatar Stotra, and he also wrote Gita Govinda, and he also wrote the Bhajan He Govinda He Gopal Keshava Madhava Dina Dayal. But anyway, the verse verse number 5 is Chalayasi Vikramane Balim Madbhuta Vamana Pada Nakhanira Janita Jana Pavana Keshavadhrita Vamana Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare. And the meaning of that is that Jayadev Goswami is praying to Lord Vishnu, Lord Keshava, Lord of the universe, who has assumed the form of a dwarf Brahmin. All glories to you, he says. O wonderful dwarf, by your massive steps you deceived King Bali, and by the Ganges water that has emanated from the nails of your lotus feet, you deliver all living beings within this world. So that's a very nice prayer. I know in one of the previous classes we read in the purports that Srila Prabhupada wanted us to learn, of course, the Hare Krishna mantra, but also any other prayers to the Lord's incarnations and become very proficient at reciting those prayers. And so this is a very good prayer to learn for especially the appearance day of Lord Vamanadeva.
Very nice. Yes, we should sing that on his appearance day for sure. Every time we used to do that at Atlanta Temple many moons ago. You might remember that. Ram Raghava Haribo, way back in the 70s. Yeah, so Krishna's not partial to anyone. He's equal to all. But if one acts a friend to him, he'll be a friend to them. So he's a friend to everyone, and even the demons. They do some good work. He rewards. It's no problem. So yeah, well, very good points. So anybody else? Anybody else got anything else they want to add? And otherwise, go ahead.
I really like that point. That Vamanadeva talks about, is it Vamanadeva or was it Bali Maharaj who talks about that the person whose mind is not controlled will never be satisfied no matter what they possess.
That was Vamana who was telling you.
Yeah. That's a good one.
That's exactly. He said, if I can't be satisfied with 3 steps, I won't be satisfied with anything. So the Lord gave him good rationalization too, after he already set him up, okay, to cheat him really nicely. Then he gave him all rationalization. You can't argue with God, okay? You can't cheat God. There's no way he can be cheated, right? And even we see that Sukracharya chastised Bali. You rascal, what have you done? Do you not know? Of course, Sukracharya was able to raise all the demons from the dead. He raised Bali from the dead in the last chapter. Bali had been killed by Indra. And Bali was laying dead on the battlefield, and all of the demons were dead. And the Lord Sukracharya took him back to his ashram and raised them all from the dead. Now, the same demons that were killed by the demigods now are more powerful than the demigods, so much so that when Aditi saw the Lord, Narayan, in his 4 hands before he took birth as Vaman, he recommended that, hey, don't mess with these guys. They have the blessings of the Brahmins. Who could defeat them? Nobody. So even the Lord himself recommended that, and he was protecting the demons. Isn't that interesting? So when you think about it, that's really true. But when you're talking about the restless mind, that's a very good point, because in the very beginning, Aditi, when she was doing this Payovrata 12-day fast and so many wonderful things that go, you can read what that vrata is, and you can see what's required. But it said that her mind resembled restless, forceful horses. And that's the condition of all of us. I mean, who can say that we control our mind? When you chanted Hare Krishna today, did your mind wander at all? See what I mean? So you have to bring it back under the control of the self. Krishna says that over and over. Wherever the mind wanders due to its restless and fickle nature, one should bring it back under the control of the self. So this is called yoga. Yoga means to control. It means to harness these horses that are the senses. You've seen that picture in the Bhagavad Gita where the nose, the tongue, the mouth, the eye, like that, are horses, and they're dragging the soul who's sitting on the chariot off of it to the abyss, right? So this is the situation she faced. But because she was able to perform the sacrifice, and because her husband, Kashyapa Muni, was already blessed in every possible way, he agreed to become her son. Isn't that wonderful? That God himself agreed to become the son of a deity. So when the Lord appeared before her in his four-handed form as Narayan, she was overwhelmed. She fell like a rod before the Lord. She was unable to speak. She was horripilating. Her hairs were standing on end, tears shooting from her eyes like torrents of rain. She was actually experiencing this ecstasy because she saw God face to face. Think about this a minute. God appeared before a deity face to face. So this is our study. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the accounts of God appearing before his devotees who are qualified to experience his appearance, and they see him face to face. Narada said he only saw him once, right? And then the Lord disappeared like that. So any little taste of ecstasy, any drop of nectar that we get, we hold on to for dear life, right? I mean, as devotees of the Lord, we've all probably experienced a little nectar. hopefully we got a higher taste at some point, right? So that little drop of nectar is what keeps us going, because that taste remains, that higher taste. You can't give up a lower taste until you get a higher taste. But once you get a higher taste, the lower taste all fall away automatically. So it's not a difficult process when we truly engage ourselves. We're following the regulative principles. We're chanting the holy names of the Lord. We're reading the Shastra. We're associating with the Vaishnavas. We're doing some service for the Lord, right? We're offering our foods to all these things that we're doing absorb us in a state of Krishna consciousness. So you could look at your own life and you could say, out of today, just look at it one day at a time. This is the way the Christians do it. Have you ever noticed? They always say one day at a time. Well, of course, I mean, I can't handle 1 minute at a time. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes it comes at you pretty quick, right? Life is coming at us quick. So if you look at your day to day, you could say, how much of this day did I remember Krishna? How much out of 24 hours that I was given did I give back to Krishna? How much time did I spend? So tonight is very, very wonderful that everybody is spending time hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam. And there's so much here to unpack. I don't think we can get to it all. We tried to do 3 chapters tonight. Rangavati made me do it. I was going to do 2 chapters, and that way we'd have more discussion. But there's still 4 more chapters in this. And then after that, we're going to talk about the Lord as the fish incarnation. Matcha. So we are blissed out going through these various incarnations of God because they're all meant for the improvement and for the correction of the demigods and for us and for the demons and for everybody to be brought back into the fold, to be brought back where we can see God face to face. That's the idea behind all this. So Aditi was overwhelmed. She couldn't even say any prayers. Finally, she gets it together. This is a repeated story, right? We hear this over and over again. So she was drinking the Lord with her eyes. I thought that was a wonderful thing, right? Like if you're in love with someone, or if you adore someone, or if you're just like overwhelmed with someone, you can't get enough. You can't see them enough. You can't hear them enough. You can't smell them enough. You can't think of them enough. Everything becomes painful in their absence. But that pain is an ecstasy because it causes the desire to grow stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And who said, give us these maladies again and again and again, O Lord, because they remind us of you? Who said that? Anybody know?
Kunti Devi.
Thank you very much. Queen Kunti said that. She was willing to go through all of the trouble the Pandavas had to go through. And look at their life. Look at their life. Oh, it was one thing after the next, the whole time, all the way to the very end. And then they leave for the Himalayas and give it all up at the end anyway. You just hear, what? You go through all of this and you just give it all up at the end, you lose it all? So the idea here is give it back before you lose it, right? Give it back before you lose it, because it's going to be taken anyway. And that was also Bali Maharaj's defense to his spiritual master, Sukracharya, when Sukracharya told him that he was a rascal. He said, no. So you see what I'm saying? So, all right. So the idea is that she says that God's name spreads all good fortune. We see that throughout all Scripture, that the name of God will deliver us. Anyone who calls on the name of the Lord is saved. We've heard that. So the Lord is never influenced by illusion. He expands himself in the material world for these various functions and pastimes to fulfill our desire to be separate from him. And then ultimately through our lessons, we come back to the Lord. But he already knew the desires of a deity, right? It's just like when the demigods go to the Lord at the Milk Ocean and they chant Purusha Sukta prayer, and then the Lord reveals to Brahma what's going on. He said, I already know. I already know what's going on. I've already got it all worked out. Don't worry. I'll be down shortly. All you demigods take birth, and we'll do these pastimes, right? So this happens over and over again. We see that. So because of Kashyap's austerities, the Lord agreed to enter in her wonderful prayers and her attitude. So text 20, Ram Raghava, I don't know how hard it is for you to pull that up in that chapter, text 20, but I had a note to speak about that for a second. This would be text 20. Let's see, I've got it right here too, I think. You see it? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so what happens is when the Lord hears, he's doing it. Okay, so the Lord appears before, and I'll read this in a second, but the Lord appeared before her fully clothed, fully decorated, fully ornamented with all the features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you can read about that. But Kashyap could feel he was in a state of deep trance, and he felt that God had already entered within him, and so he transferred the Lord to the womb of his wife, and the Lord then appears fully decorated. And so this is the same case, like if you read the story of Vasudeva Devaki, the prison, the Lord appeared before them fully dressed, fully clothed. But in this case, just like an actor, he transformed in front of his parents into Vamanadeva, the dwarf incarnation, just like an actor. And in the verse, in the purport, Prabhupada says the word nata. Nata is actor who changes dress, right? So I think, I'm sorry, I told you text 20, I meant text 12. So you know what that's
Chapter 17?
Chapter 18.
Chapter 18, okay.
Yeah. Let me go to that too. Sorry, guys, we covered a lot of ground tonight.
When Krishna appeared, he also appeared first in Vasudev's mind and then got transferred to the womb of Devaki. And I think the same thing happens here. He first appears in the mind of Kashyapa, and then get transferred to Aditi.
Yep, exactly. So it says here that the Lord appeared in his original form with ornaments and weapons in his hands. Although every existing form is not visible in the material world, he nonetheless appears in this form. Then in the presence of his father and mother, he assumed the form of Vamana, a Brahmana dwarf, just like a theatrical actor. Can you go down to the purport for 1 second? So if you look here where it says the word nata is significant. Actor changes dress to play different parts. This is what you guys were talking about in the very beginning, about the Lord appearing in this way. Rangavati mentioned. But he's always the same person. Even though he may change his dress, he's always the same person. So can you go back to that one moment where we were? I was going to show you this part. Yeah, right here. It's right there. Stop. So it says, the Lord assumes many thousands and millions of forms, Advaitam, Achyutam, Anandam, Anantarupam, right? So we know that the Lord is capable of assuming any form, any way he wants to do. So he's always present with innumerable incarnations. Nonetheless, although he appears in various incarnations, they are not different from one another. He is the same person with the same potency, the same eternity, and the same spiritual existence. But he can simultaneously assume various forms. Now, even the Jivatmas can do this as well as one of their mystic potencies. We see that Arjuna is present in trillions of universes performing this pastime of the Lord, right? And somewhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that the Jivatma can attain up to, well, I believe it's 78% of these opulences of the Lord. And they're meant to be used in the service of the Lord. And we see the demigods are filled with all these mystic powers and potencies, like raising the dead, etc., and so on. And so they have an understanding of manifestation in the material world, just like Brahma, Vishnu, or God comes as Brahma also, or empowers Jivatma to be able to have that ability to function and create. And he comes as Shiva for the purpose of destruction. And of course, Vishnu's there for the maintenance of the universe. So Brahma actually realized that the Lord had entered her womb as well. And therefore, he offered wonderful prayers. And he said that the Lord attracts everything in the universe. He's the only shelter of the demigods. There is no other shelter. So Krishna says, Madhyakshena prakritis, suyate sa chara hetuna nena kontya jagad viparivartate. This material world is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. So this is, all of these things confirm what we're reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam when we read Bhagavad Gita as well. So the astrological configuration was mentioned as Dvadasi Vijaya. That was the actual time. So that is always mentioned when God is appearing. It's the most auspicious moment. Everything is in perfect alignment. And at that time, the Lord does appear, fully decorated before his parents. And the whole universe is filled with joy. As a matter of fact, it said the demigods were so happy that they showered so many flowers on the house of Kashyapa Muni, the whole house was covered in flowers. Can we imagine that? Your whole house covered in flowers. That's pretty cool. So the sun god, he came. He offered the Gayatri mantra personally. How do you like that? That's not bad. And Mother Bhagavati, which is Shiva's wife, she gave him his first alms. Isn't that very nice? So there's so many things that we could pull out of here, but these are just some things that I found that were highlighted for me. If you hear any that you want to add, please do that. But so the Lord, when he appeared as Vamana, he performed a sacrifice immediately. And then he heard that Bali Maharaj was performing the Ashvamedha sacrifice. And so he went there. And as he went there, his steps pressed down the earth. His steps were so heavy that he pressed down the whole earth. And when he appeared, he robbed all of the demigods and all of the saints and the sages of their splendor by his presence. So where do we think our splendor is coming from? See what I'm saying? So no one can be equal to nor. So he came with a rod. He came with a water pot and an umbrella as a Brahmana boy, a little dwarf. And everyone stood and offered his obeisances in the arena. They offered obeisances to the Lord in that arena. And Bali washed his feet. Bali washed the Lord's feet. And then he took the water on his head, right? So we actually bathe the Lord, don't we? And when we do bathe the deity, we take the Charnamrita. We drink the water of the bathing water of the Lord, right? One time my friend was in New York. He'd just become a devotee. I had been preaching to him for about 3 years. And so he was going to New York. He stopped at the Brooklyn Temple and he went, and the temple president was showing him around the Brooklyn Temple, and he took him up to a private little closet. And in the closet, they go in there and he pulls out behind the shelf a bottle of water. And, you know, my student who's new to all this stuff, he gets out these two little shot glasses and he pours a little bit of the water in the shot glasses. He goes, cheers, and they drink it. He goes, what was that? He said, that was my spiritual master's foot wash. He thought, what have you done to me? He wasn't at that point yet, but I think he was propelled to greater heights by that experience for sure. So this is our idea. Everything about the Lord is auspicious. And so therefore, we are very happy to take his Charanamrita. So when the Lord begs Bali, he praised Bali, just like you said earlier. He set him up. You know, if you want somebody to comply with your wishes, the best way to do is praise them and glorify them and to soften them up, right? You girls might know a lot about this, right? How the guys do. Because this is said, by the way, there's no actual falsity in doing that, right? And we'll read that verse in just a moment. I'll show you what I'm talking about when he says that. But anyway, he goes ahead, he glorifies him, and he tells him, he recalls the whole story of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, and he goes through the whole family history of Bali and the Brigu dynasty and so forth, and noble family. And then he tells him, he says, you have to always fulfill your promises because this is part of your dynasty. So now he's got him completely set up. He just wants 3 paces, nothing unnecessary. But what does Bali say? He said, you're a young boy. You have insufficient intelligence. This is what Bali said to God. He's telling God that he has insufficient intelligence. What a pastime the Lord has set up here. So he tells him, he says, you're not prudent. You're a small boy. You're not very intelligent. You shouldn't enter into this agreement. It's bad for you. He said, don't you know that I'm capable of giving you anything? And he starts describing a full list of stuff he could give him. And then what does Vaman say? He said, oh, and by the way, Bali said, anyone who asks me for anything should never leave here ever wanting to ask anyone for anything else ever again. Think about that. That was the prowess of Bali. And he was sitting in Indra's throne. He was sitting in the chair of Indra while he's doing this. Guys, try to envision what we're talking about here. If you could see this in a movie, it would blow your mind, you know. So let these stories enter into your mind. Dream these stories at night. Let these stories manifest in your heart. Envision them with your imagination. See these great, wondrous things until Steven Spielberg gets a hold of it. And then maybe we'll have a good movie, right, coming out about it. But he said, Vamana comes back. He said, no. He said, I just need 3 lands, nothing unnecessary. If I can't be happy with three steps of land, then I can't want anything. I would never be satisfied with an island. I would just want another. I would want more and more money because anyone who ever gets everything is never satisfied. So that's desirelessness means not to want anything separate from Krishna. Not that you don't have desires. You have unlimited desires to serve Krishna. That's okay. But desirelessness and being unattached or detached means I don't want anything except for that which will satisfy the Lord. So he said, people who are discontent, they'll never be happy. And there can never be peace, or without peace, there could be no happiness, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So we just want lust more and more and more, and that's the cause of material life, birth, death, old age, and disease. So just be satisfied with what comes to you by destiny, right? Don't worry about all the rest of this. Just be satisfied. And so therefore he is taking only what is absolutely needed. Bali smiled, and then he said, okay, take whatever you like. Take whatever you like. No problem. And so Sukracharya immediately chimed in. And Sukracharya said, O son of Arochana, do you not know that you're being cheated? This person that's in front of you is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's fulfilling the desires of the demigods, and it will harm the demons. What you're trying to do will harm the demons. He will take away your land and your wealth, everything, and he will deliver it to you, your arch enemy, Indra. He's going to take it. He's going to give it to Indra. And his spiritual master is Sri Kalagyani. He can see past, present, future. He knows what's going to happen. He already sees the whole thing in his mind. So what does he do? He says he's going to occupy the lower worlds. And with his first step, the second world, he's going to go take everything to all the way up to Brahmaloka. What will you do for his third step? You cannot fulfill your promises, and therefore you will be eternally a resident of hell, and you've defiled in your family tradition, right? So he's just been chastised. So he says the best course is just to say no. And he tells him all of this stuff that is really Shastric jive, right? Because he's trying to say, well, you didn't say Om in front of it, so you really don't have to do this. He said you can get away without it because the person who utters Om becomes, in other words, they become poverty stricken. They own nothing. They're offering everything to the Lord by saying Om. And so therefore he says it's okay to also lie in various ways. So what is the lies that he's recommending that we can get away with? Does anybody remember what that is? Ram Raghava, could you go to the last verse in that chapter? That's chapter 19, I think. 19, yeah. Could you go to the last verse in that chapter for me, please? We're going to find out what we can get away with, guys. Hold on just a minute. I know everybody, we have a tendency to cheat, right? Right? We're in the material world. So we have a little tendency to cheat. So let's see what we can get away with here. In flattering a woman to bring her under control, in joking, just like Arjuna used to joke with Krishna. Remember, he asked for forgiveness because he said too many joking words. Oh, yes, Krishna, you are so this and that, right? In a marriage ceremony, in earning one's livelihood, yes, for you, sir, I make no profit, right? How many times you've been to maybe Loy Bazaar or wherever you've been, and no, it's the best deal, right? It's not the best deal. If he's not making money, he can't stay in business. So he's going to lie to you, sir, for you, no profit, right? So when one's life is in danger, yes, you can lie. Oh, guys, y'all, anybody that needs to go can always check out and come back and hear the rest of this on the YouTube channel under Gayatri Dasa. I think you can find it there. But I want to tell you a story that I think would apply to this just quickly. And then we'll finish the last chapter. And it shouldn't take more than another 5 or 10 minutes for those of you that can stay with us. But one time I heard a story about Bhaktisiddhanta. And you may or may not know this story. But Bhaktisiddhanta had a program at the Gaudiya Math, and a nice lawyer had come, and he'd come from far away. He was very wealthy, and they had been chanting, and the ecstasy for the weekend was just wonderful. And so the lawyer said, I must leave now, and I must go back to my town and go back to work because I'm an attorney. And Bhaktisiddhanta looked at him and said, no. He said, stay with us. Please stay with us. The chanting is so very nice. And he said, no, I must go. So he asked him again. He said, please stay with us. He said, no. He said, I have to go back to work. He said, tell him you're sick. Just tell him you're sick. Just stay with us, right? How many of us have probably said that before? Well, I'll just call him sick or whatever it is, right? So he told, tell him you're sick. So the lawyer became really offended, and he became really kind of critical to Bhaktisiddhanta. And he said, you are a saint. You are telling me to lie? How is it that you're telling me to lie and that this is good? I will leave and I'll never come back. So he left, and Bhaktisiddhanta was disturbed by this event, right? And so Bhaktisiddhanta's, he's a little bit beside himself. All the devotees were morose. They didn't know what to think like that. And then and he heard the story and he said, what nonsense? So he said, where's this lawyer? Immediately I will find him. And so they didn't know what he was going to do to the lawyer. So, but he left there in a hurry and he went directly to wherever the lawyer was, and he walked into the lawyer's place, and he said, he told me the story. He said that I should tell an untruth. He said, I have one question for you. He said, let's say that I am a robber and you know that I'm coming to steal everything you have. He said, and you've hidden your children and your wife in a closet. So now I've taken everything from your house. And I say, is there anything more that I should take? Would you tell him about the children and the wife in the closet? So the lawyer immediately fell down, offered Dandavats, and immediately went back to where Bhaktisiddhanta was and realized that sometimes these things are required. So we're seeing how the Lord is doing this. It's such a beautiful nuance how these things can so skillfully be used in these stories that they bring us this type of enlightenment. But it is quite intricate, isn't it? All these details. We have to read, we have to study, we have to know. So thanks for that. So I guess that's the end of that chapter. Okay, look at that. Guys, we're finished. How do you like that? We went a little long tonight, but you can blame Rangavati. She likes to hear this stuff, and she could go all night with this if you want to watch out. I'm telling you. Her and Bhavananda. So, guys, thank you so much for coming to the class. We're always so excited to have everyone come and read, to hear your beautiful voices, and put your signature on these classes. We couldn't be more grateful to you for your association. And we're looking forward to seeing you again on the next Monday night class, which is going to be wonderful. I think Vamsi has his hand up. So, yeah, what you got?
Yeah, Prabhuji, so can we infer that Bali Maharaj is slightly proud of his prowess and all his accomplishments, because he's saying, like, if I give you charity, you shouldn't ask again. He's saying that he's calling the Lord, even though he stood up when the Lord came and he knows this is an exalted person, he's calling the Lord unintelligent and thinking that he knows better. Can we say that there was a slight tinge of pride in what he's owning and what he can give?
Well, I would think this is more of Yoga Maya to me. I mean, that's my take on it, guys. Because you're talking about in the whole universe from time immemorial. He wants this lesson. These are eternal stories. These didn't happen and they're never forgotten. These are happening continuously in all universes. And they're happening for the correction of the demigods and the rest of us. So no, I think that's my take on it. What does anybody else think about that? Maybe Bali, he's a demon. Maybe he's a little proud. I'm not saying he's not proud. He should be proud. He's sitting on Indra's throne. Right? Indra's a little proud sometimes, isn't he? We find that to be the case. So, yeah, we see that pride comes before the fall, doesn't it? We wrote a song in a Murari band called Pride. And that was, an example, that pride comes before we fall. So, yes, and Bali fell. Where did he fall to? We'll see in the next chapter. I think you guys are going to love this next one. It gets really good, right? So please be here and read with us again. And thanks for sticking the extra time tonight. You're all so wonderful. Please accept my humble obeisances. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Please take this story with you throughout the week, and we'll continue next week. Same time, same station. Hare Bol.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.